Okay, Shavua Tov to everyone, a good Tavach and a good Chodesh. We're finally back after a very long break. I hope everyone had a great Pesach, a healthy Pesach, a kosher Pesach, and then we're coming back a little more spiritual with our week-long diet. I always notice in the seminary the girls are more subdued after the Pesach break. So it's less challenging. This class I don't have such an issue. It's hard to compare because it's so good. You know, see the matzah diet has a big difference. Makes a big difference. Okay, so on our menu for today, first let me just we do plan on continuing our normal seder of the course that we started of women halachis, and as I mentioned, that I want to use the book of Rabbi Fuchs, Halichas Bas Yisrael, which they have in English. Next week we'll start from it as our, we're going to go through at least the topics, not read word for word, but just the topics of the halachas pertinent to women from there. For today, however, what we're going to cover is we're going to go through Rosh Chodesh reminders, and then we're going to discuss after Pesach halachas and Sefiras HaOmer. So hopefully within the next hour and 20 minutes, we'll be able to cover all those subjects. Okay, we're going to Rosh Chodesh. A list of reminders, checklist of halachas that are applicable to Rosh Chodesh and Minhagim. Since we know that it is customary for women to abstain from doing certain works on Rosh Chodesh. It goes for both days of Rosh Chodesh. So that means last night, today, and tomorrow until tomorrow night. Women customarily abstain from doing laundry and sewing. Right? Those are the two works that are not done. And the reason for that is it's not a punishment. It's meant to be a prize. That the women did not partake in the Egel Azav ceremony. They did not willingly give over their jewelry. It was forced out of their hands, fingers, and ears by the men who were so excited to make that golden calf. And the women did not agree to it. So because of that, they were given a special holiday called Rosh Chodesh. That's what's recorded in the Medrash. And so therefore, they have this custom of not doing work.
Can their husbands do the laundry?
Well, even though that's not what's written in the actual poskim that the husband has to do it, that's what makes sense. Otherwise, it's just 2 days or 3 days piled up on Tuesday, right? So what holiday is that? It's a holiday that you then have to, you have to pay up a few days later.
My rabbi had said that if he turns on the machine, okay.
It is true, but I think we can all agree what is the most laborious work involved in laundry? Turning on the machine or putting it inside and collecting it all and hanging it up. So if we want to live by the spirit of the holiday, then but if necessary, then yes, it's true. You can have a son or you can have a husband press the button. Yes, that's true.
He could do the whole thing.
That's also true.
That's what's supposed to happen.
You can do the whole thing. That's also true. These are heterim that women shouldn't be running to get. It should just be the husband's job. On Rosh Chodesh, it is forbidden to cut hair or nails. This applies to both men and women. Nails applies to both the nails of the hands and of the feet for both days of Rosh Chodesh. This is not due to a Talmudic prohibition. It is not due to the work prohibition, which is anyways only applicable to women, and this is applicable to everyone. This is rather due to a sakana, due to a danger written about in the famous work of Rabbi Yehuda Chas called Sefer Chassidim. There's thousands of warnings based on sakana, danger, written there. And in general, it has to do with demonic figures and spiritual matters that we don't have access to. So we don't really understand why it's forbidden. We've never met the spirits or demons that have involvement with the cutting of the nails and the hair, or what or how it makes sense. But this is from Yehuda Chassid. So therefore, we all keep it, and we do not cut hair and nails during. Let me just finish. On Rosh Chodesh, this is referring to, by the way, hair of the head.
Oh,
Okay, hair of the head,
not
body hair. There's no prohibition of body hair,
Oh.
not for men, not for women. It's specifically hair of the head, but nails, it refers to nails everywhere, all nails. On Rosh Chodesh, it is a mitzvah to have a festive meal by daytime. From the letter of the law, you don't have to wash on bread, but there is an encouragement to do so, to wash on bread and have something extra extravagant on both days of Rosh Chodesh, the first and the second day. On Rosh Chodesh, we increase in tzedakah. We avoid visiting cemeteries. That corresponds to his age. So, if, let's say your kapitel has 24 verses, then it's 2 a month. So you do 2 psukim with Pirush Rashi every single month, and then you finish the whole thing at the end of the year.
The next, like if a person, like for example, is like 20, so they.
Exactly.
Why?
Because you're in your 21st year.
Wow.
When you're 1 year old, that means that you didn't just start living now. That means
Right.
you've lived for an entire year.
That
When you're
makes
20,
sense.
that means you've lived on Earth for an entire 20 years. So now you're starting year 21.
Whoa.
So did I make everyone now feel a year older based on
Yeah,
that?
that's okay though.
Okay.
All right. You're wiser. You're a Christian.
You know, as kids, the older they are, the more excited they get. As adults, the more older we are, the okay. Regarding davening, so as we know, we recite Yalav V'Yaveh and all the Shemana Esreis. Regarding repetition in case of omission, the halacha is that while in Shachris and Mincha we do repeat Shemana Esrei, in Ma'ariv we do not. So if in the Ma'ariv prayer, if anyone's davening it, they forgot Yalav V'Yaveh, you don't repeat Shemana Esrei. This applies to both men and women. There's no difference. Well, we've mentioned in our previous class, if you are for an Ashkenazi, if you're Sephardi, even the men don't say it with a bracha, let alone the women. They don't say Hal with a bracha. In fact, the widespread custom in Sfas is not to say Hal with a bracha on Rosh Chodesh. Even many Ashkenazim as well follow that minhag, not to say it with a bracha. Amongst Chabad, we do say it with a bracha. In Chabad, yes. Even in Sfas. Of Halal. Shekid Sham says, well, I explained. Sephardim don't say it anywhere, and many in Sfas, even Ashkenazim, don't say it. That's the old Ashkenazi custom in Sfas, is not to say it bracha by Halal. Of Rosh Chodesh. If it was forgotten, you do not have to repeat anything. This applies for both men and women. And the reason is because you only need to repeat a benching that you forgot to mention a date in if you had to wash on bread due to that day, such as Shabbos. You have to have Lechem Mishnah. So if you got Ritzeh, you have to repeat. But if you didn't have to and you decided to do so on your own, then if you forgot Yalav V'Yaveh, you don't have to repeat. In benching, we say Migdal instead of Magdil. And that's the end of our short Rosh Chodesh summary.
So can I ask you?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you file your nails?
So filing the nails, in my opinion, is not a problem. And the reason for that is because it doesn't completely get rid of the nail. And in matters of sakana, it's good enough to stick to the actual tradition we received and not add to it. So because of this, I would say that there is no problem to file the nails or even to get a manicure necessarily, unless it's going to involve chipping part of the nail and making it pointy or something like that. Then it could be that we would say even taking some of the nail off with a clip would be a problem.
And can you cut shadels?
Shaitel's not a problem. It's not real hair. Even if it was your hair that was turned into a shaitel, it's no longer your hair because it's detached from your body. And therefore, Yehuda Chassid did not include that in his prohibition. Okay, Pesach is over, but our discussion has just begun. After Pesach laws, okay? It's a lot of after Pesach halachas that we have to keep in mind. and we'll begin regarding chametz. First, a little clarification to know for future years. This year we had a very unique situation, which doesn't happen that often, but it happens, where Pesach in Eretz Yisrael ended on Friday, meaning Friday night, and Shabbos was already no longer Pesach, but did not give us any breathing space of being able to do anything to prepare for our common after Pesach chametz party. So, as we know, Moroccans, they have the right, which is so, they obviously had to push that off to Matzah Shabbos to do this year. But one of the things that came up was that, is it in truth permitted for me to eat a guy's chametz on the Shabbos? For example, Pesach went and I bought all the last pretzel bags and fresh challahs from the store, and I put it in my special chametz freezer. There's a big sign in it, wrote sold to the guy. I padlocked it and I hid the key somewhere. I did everything with chumrah, mahadran min mahadran as it's supposed to be done, that no one will come to eat this on Pesach, and it was sold to the guy. Now it's Shabbos. I take out my key, I open up my freezer, I see cakes, cookies, pretzels, bread, challah. Can I eat it?
No, you sold it.
You don't have time to buy it.
Right.
No.
You can't buy
So
it.
the question that comes up is that obviously there's no issue of eating it due to the prohibition of eating chametz, because it's the week. Pesach is over. Same way you can eat chametz today, you can eat chametz that Shabbos. You don't get it to continue an extension of the prohibition just because it entered Shabbos. In Chutz La'aretz, yes, because they keep 2 days, but not in Eretz Yisrael. But the other question, however, is a question of commerce, of stealing. Can you go into, just because it's mutter to eat cake under the Eid HaCharedis, doesn't mean it's mutter for me to pray at night and steal a cake under the Eid HaCharedis, right? So how can I go into the freezer and steal the food that is really sold to the guy? It belongs completely. And the answer is twofold. Number one, in truth, the guy doesn't mind at all. Because let's change the case. The case isn't that I am breaking in middle of the night into Super Soul or Barcol and stealing a cake. What really is happening is that I am, let's say, the manager of this store, have rights to open it. I'm involved in this business. And the guy knows and trusts me that if I take a cake, I will pay him back. This is very similar to a lot of self-service, and you have it today very popular in the States. We have self-service supermarkets where there actually is no cashier. You take the stuff and they trust you to pay on your own.
Now?
Of course, sure.
That's new.
It's not new. It's been around for about 10 years already. And I spoke to one of the managers. They said areas of the United States, it's economically worth it for them because the amount of money they have to pay in employees to be cashiers is greater than the amount of goods that are stolen by untrustworthy people.
Wow.
So it depends on which neighborhood this can work in. Certain neighborhoods, obviously, they'll have a much more greater level of stolen goods. But in any event, the point is that you don't actually have to have the owner, the Geisha owner, there at the moment. You know that this is meant to be on sale, and he's interested in the sale taking place, then it's permitted for it to be taken. And therefore, since the whole workaround of the contract of sale to the guy is not that he's buying everyone's chametz because he's a glutton that loves eating leftover pretzels and broken pieces of, bread that are found behind your couch that you missed in B'dikas chametz, it's because he's a businessman and he taking a chance. Maybe the sale of chametz will go up after Pesach, and now I have all this chametz to sell. The purpose of the sale is for him to sell all this stuff. It's not for him to eat and munch on it at home. So because of that, when I take it, I'm in essence doing him a favor. I am purchasing it from him. Now, since the guy bought it from me and didn't pay me yet, so what I took from him cancels out what he owes me. Now, if there was a market change and he wants to make an issue about it, then in truth, yes, you would have to pay him back. So let's say Osem cakes before Pesach were worth 20 shekel and now they're worth 30 shekel. Something happened, all the grains in a certain land were burnt, there's no more there's a shortage of grains, all the cakes just jumped up 30%. So if he wants, the guy can make an issue and he can come and say, listen, I have no problem that you ate that cake on Pesach. You enjoyed it? Good. Pay me the extra 10 shekel it was worth on that date.
Mm.
And then you have to pay.
Mhm.
Practically, this doesn't happen, both because most things have set prices. Inflation doesn't happen overnight and not over a week unless something catastrophic has occurred. There's also laws that prevent price gouging. So there's a lot of different reasons of why this is not something that's actually suspected for. The Alter Rebbe also brings a very interesting Chodesh in which he writes the following. That even though, and this is today's Rambam, interestingly, even though it's absolutely biblically forbidden to steal, whether from a Jew or Gentile, and he writes even an idol worshiper, which is very interesting because an idol worshiper, there's special laws of interaction with idol worshippers. I mean, the whole Sefer Yeshua is discussing wiping out the idol worshippers. So not let idol worshippers live, but it says you can't steal their property.
Mm.
It's biblically forbidden to steal their money, to steal their property. However, that's only one is considered stealing. Stealing is when you take without intent to compensate, without intent to pay back. But if you take something with intent to pay him back, there's never an isser gneva. There's a different isser called leisachmed. The isser of taking something of someone's that you want and paying him for it against his will is an isser derais of leisachmed. Do not covet. That prohibition is only applicable to Jews. So therefore, the Alter says that if you want ahead and you want to take this chametz for yourself, and with intent to pay the guy back, then it's fine. It's not an issue. There's no issue of stealing. To top off this entire discussion and to conclude it is that today all the Mumche Rabbanim in their star in the Chiras Chametz actually write explicitly in the star, the guy hereby gives permission for the Jewish seller to take from the chametz as he sees fit, when he sees fit, such as, for example, let's say it's a chametz medicine, you need to give it to a child. You have many children, babies, infants, that they can only survive on chametz formulas over Pesach. That's all they have to eat, chametz formulas. It's a kanas nefashos, of course you have to give it to them, but who's going to own it? I have to own it. The Jew has to, of course not. So what does the father do? The father includes it in a sale to the guy, and daily takes from the guy's baby formula and gives it to his son to eat or daughter to eat, because they have to. So in order to make this 100% glatt kosher, I mean, it's kind of ironic I'm using that term, glatt kosher from a stealing perspective, so they actually explicitly write in the contract that the guy gives his permission whenever you need to use it. So that's the bottom line here as well. There was no issue, and the same applies every year of Pesach. There is no issue in consuming the chametz as soon as Pesach is over, and you do not have to wait until you get a phone call from the Rav telling you, oh, I did the sale, you can now eat your chametz. Because if you will wait for that phone call, you're going to wait till next year, because it's not going to come.
Can I ask another question? It's a little bit not a detour, but people have this idea of only buying cookies made after Pesach.
Coming up. There's a lot to discuss of after Pesach stuff. Yeah, we're going to discuss that. It's a major topic. Practically, though, I mean, when it's Matzeh Pesach and it's no longer Isser Malacha, you just open up your cabinets and eat your chametz. But this year, because it was Shabbos, unless you had a padlock that you can open with the key, it's a little bit of an issue with breaking things, breaking through scotch tape or anything else of your cabinets to get to your chametz. So that's a side issue. And basically, because of all that, the suggestion just was just keep Pesach one more day, and at least regarding chametz consumption, and to avoid any possibility of other isurim. But the actual consumption of chametz is not an isur of itself.
I heard on Shabbos that Rabbi posted that you can't do the rocks.
Yeah, we had a big discussion about this, and
I didn't find out till Shabbos.
So, right, gebrachs, there's not that you can't eat gebrachs. Of course you can eat gebrachs. There's no issue with eating gebrachs on Shabbos. If you can eat chametz on Shabbos, of course you can eat gebrachs.
The dishes, he had the issue.
There's no issue with the dishes.
No?
In Chutz La'aretz, every single year they eat gebrachs on the chametz dishes. It's not an issue at all.
Okay.
And not chametz dishes, on the Pesach dishes.
Yeah.
And as I clarified from Rav Lando in Bnei Brak, the Lando, the brother of Yehuda Leib Lando, the Shalom, who passed away, that was also the minhag. The minhag is to eat even on the Pesach dishes the gebrach. So that's for sure not an issue.
Okay.
Eating gebrachs on Pesach dishes is not an issue for this Pesach if you would do it. So you don't continue eating Pesach foods on it for this Pesach. For next Pesach, the custom is not to make an issue anywhere. However, the issue was regarding cooking gebrachs. So if you cook gebrachs, if you're cooking it on Yontif for the sake of Shabbos, you're cooking something that is not consumable on Yontif. You're allowed to cook something on Yontif that you can't eat on Yontif. So this is a machlekes, and that's why we publicize that it's better not to. We publicize it's better to either make it chol hamoed or not make it at all. You can have other forms of gebrachs. You can dip your matzah in your wine, but you don't. There's nowhere it says you have to have matzah balls. It doesn't say anywhere. You don't have to have matzah balls. Now, interestingly, this week, last week, right after Pesach, another Rav wrote to me saying that I'm surprised that you publicized that you can't make gebrachs, that you can't cook on Yontif. I heard from a certain chassid of Reichik that it's mutter, and that was done in the house of the Rebbe Rayatz. So I said, listen, I wasn't born yesterday. Give me details of what you heard. I want to hear exactly. And so what does he tell me? So first I thought he heard it from the Alter Zaken Reichik, who was an Alter Chassid. Anyone knew him from LA?
Yes.
California.
What's your name? Rabbi Rachi.
Reichik. So I thought he was referring to him. Shmuel David. I thought he was referring to him, which was a little strange because the years don't really make so much sense from this Rav. He's young. So in the end, it was from his son. He heard it from his son, who heard it from who? Reb Leibel Bistritsky. So I told him that's kind of strange that his own son would go ahead. Leibel was the grandfather of this Rav, the father of the previous Rav of Tzfas. So that's kind of strange that the one Rav who came out, literally, he's the only Rav who came out so adamantly that it's Aser. Levi Bistritsky. He wrote a whole tshuva on it by Arichos Day. It's so funny that Dafka, his own father, says, "Oh, that Messiah and Lubavitch is to do so." So I called him up, the son of Rabbi Bistritsky here, and he said that they never heard of such a thing, and that his father had spoken with his grandfather, and they had spoken about this psak before, and no mention was ever made. So, in general, we should know this as a rule of life. Hearsay should remain exactly what it is, just hearsay. It should never have any implementation in anything you do in life unless you check it out and get it verified. But we're not saying those who are lenient to do so have nothing to rely upon. There's room for both approaches, but we're just saying that it's better to avoid a shaila of cooking on Yontif. That's all. Okay, let's go straight into benefiting from or eating chametz after Pesach. When you mention now regarding why some people don't, they want to get only stuff that says on it was ground and prepared after Pesach. So let's get a few rules down. Although technically the prohibition of eating chametz applies only during the 7/8 days of Passover, in diaspora 8 days, that's in reference to the biblical prohibition. There is, however, a rabbinical prohibition that extends after Pesach forever. Now, what is that prohibition? That prohibition is as follows. Any chametz that was around on earth during any time of Pesach, under ownership of a Jew, is prohibited unto all mankind for the rest of its life, forever. Never becomes permitted.
If it wasn't sold.
That's why I said it belongs to a Jew. If it was sold, I mean, it doesn't belong to a Jew.
Okay, fine.
Unless the guy was discovered to be a Jew, which happens. Not all Goyim are Jewish, and not all Jews are Goyim. With the opposite, I'm sorry. Not all Goyim are Goyim, and not all Jews are Jews, right? It's an unfortunate fact. So sometimes you have Goyim who, of course I'm not Jewish, only my mom is, And you have Jews who say, of course I'm Jewish, only my mom wasn't, You have those type of people. And of course, according to Halacha, they're Jewish and they're Gentile, and therefore, if you ended up selling them your chametz for Pesach, you didn't transgress anything, because indeed another person owned it, not you, but a Jew owned it, and a Jew transgressed. Therefore, all that chametz has to be destroyed. Okay, so that's a general law. If it was accidentally sold to a Jew, any chametz that belongs to a Jew must be destroyed. No one can benefit from it.
He asked if the non-Jew could benefit, so they eat it.
Listen, a non-Jew doesn't have to follow Judaism, so he has no prohibition in going into, when I'm doing my beer chametz 2 days after Pesach and destroying all this chametz, because it was discovered that our nice guy was a little too nice, and now we discovered he's a Jew. Then if he wants to go and do some serious nefesh and dive into the burning can and take out a half-burnt osem cake and eat it, then I don't have to stop him. He doesn't have a mitzvah, and I don't have the chiyuv to stop him. But at the same time, I can't offer it to a guy. I can't. It's not Baal Tashkis to follow God's will and destroy something He asked us to destroy. Right? Baal Tashkis is only by something that has a halachically permissible usage, and you go ahead and you deny God the ability to have a usage made of that item. But once it halachi no longer has permissible usage, you have to destroy it so people don't stumble on it. Let's think of it similar to killing a poisonous spider or poisonous scorpion. Isn't it Baal Tashkis to kill animals? Of course it is. To for fun go over and step on ants because you get a thrill of crushing them is an Isser Derais of Baal Tashkis. However, if you're killing the animal in order to prevent something dangerous from happening, then it's a mitzvah. So to here, why are we burning the chametz? Because the chametz is asa. It's spiritual poison. So we got to get rid of it.
So, excuse me, already by Friday night, I could have already given my cat.
If you had a way of accessing your chametz without breaking any Shabbos laws, then yes.
Yeah, it was put in a barrel outside.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Was the barrel sealed with anything?
No, it wasn't sealed, but there's some just dust there. So
okay, yeah. So technically, you could give it to your cat.
And the chicken feed as
and
well.
If anyone would ask your cat, how can you give them chametz, you can send them to me.
Okay. I ended up waiting till the end, Motzi Shabbos, to give the cat and the chickens.
Okay, listen, today we're very machmir today, even our animals.
By the way, the chickens turned out to be kosher.
Oh, great. Okay, let's move on to another point. We're just putting a few rules down so we can move on to our main question of understanding practically today going to store and buying things. Now, the Alter Rebbe adds a further point in which he states that even chametz that wasn't owned by a Jew over Pesach, but it wasn't owned by a guy either, such as, for example, I noticed Friday this year, right? Pesach was Shabbos, so I noticed Friday morning, half hour before Mechiras Chametz, and I didn't do Mechiras Chametz yet, that I have a bottle of schnapps that's complete chametz, it's whiskey, and I didn't do because I said, I'm not keeping any chametz at home, why don't I do Mechiras Chametz? And now I found it, and I went ahead and I put it outside and I hid it somewhere in public. I come back after Pesach and I see it, Baruch Hashem, no one found it, no one drank it. You can't take it back. Any chametz that belonged to a Jew before Pesach and was not under ownership of a guy during Pesach, the Alter Rebbe holds is also forbidden in benefit. So not only can you not benefit, no Jew can benefit from it if you have to take it and spill it and get rid of it. So, if you didn't do Mechiras Chametz. Okay, so now that we have these rules down, let's speak about some facts on the ground. You have a number of Yidden who are very careful after Pesach to not eat any chametz unless the chametz was ground and baked after Pesach, meaning that there is a label on the product that says it was ground into flour from wheat and baked after Pesach, which means that its chametz state of existence was non-existent when Pesach was around.
Tastes better anyway. It's fresh.
It's definitely fresher if the label is true.
Right.
But if they stuck the label on 3 months before Pesach because they're getting ready for the massive production of these products, then it may not be that fresh after all. Or sometimes you make a mistake. It says in a Tafshin Ayin Ches, and you didn't bother looking at the year. And the store, they didn't want to lose money. They put all their nefa v'nit chanach or Pesach Tafshin Ayin Tes that didn't sell. They put it away in storage for next year's Pesach.
Wow.
This is not an exaggeration. There are many stories of people receiving products that were miraculously ground and baked after Pesach, months before Pesach.
Oh,
So, but let's assume it's correct. So yes, it's fresh. It's true. And it avoids, of course, any issue because it wasn't chametz in Pesach. So I don't have to resort to guy owning it, Jew owning it, etc.
Right.
Now, why do they do this? If it was sold to a guy over Pesach, it belonged to a guy. It's mutter to eat. There's no problem. So there's a number of reasons, and these reasons will help us understand practically, even for us who are not machmir like this approach, to why, nonetheless, we do have to be careful about certain things. Number one, there are some poskim who poke holes at the mechira, who poke holes at the sale and say it's not a really valid sale. It's a sale that's, for necessity, but it's not glatt kosher. The sale is not glatt kosher, and I only eat glatt kosher food. So if it's not chalak, if it's not clear according to all opinions, then why should I rely on eating chametz? Why should I rely on the sale? And therefore, they want to choose to be stringent, and there is such room for an approach. As I said, our place can do poke holes at the sale for a variety of reasons. So therefore, they want to avoid relying on eating any foods, chametz foods that were owned over Pesach, even through the sale. According to the Alter Rebbe and Chabad custom, we completely rely on the sale because Alter Rebbe rules that the sale is 100% biblically valid. It's not a trick. It's not a leniency. It's 100% biblically valid, and therefore we can go ahead and eat chametz and rely on the sale to eat actual chametz sold by a guy.
Well, if they want to be that stringent, excuse me for saying, but if they're selling their own chametz,
No, they don't. Those people do not sell their own
so what do they do?
They get rid of everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, they're really
Those
mishigas.
people are definitely. That's a lot of Jews.
I shouldn't say that.
That's a lot of even Yidden who do eat after Pesach from Mechira, they themselves don't own any chametz during Pesach. A lot of Yidden. That's more widespread than the concept of being careful on the nitchan, the nifa after Pesach. That you don't want to own any chametz during Pesach itself because of the chashash. Listen, traditionally, let's go back in time. Traditionally, 200 years ago, every Jew got rid of all their chametz. There was no such thing as relying on a mechira. The reliance of mechira on this wide scale that everyone does it, it's only recent in history that we began relying on this. But let's say after Tchias HaMeis, you're going to have your great-grandparents in your house. They're going to see chametz, and they're going to go crazy on you. What are you doing? You get start explaining the chiras chametz. Yeah, but that only like the beer owner, the Jewish beer owner who was the philanthropist of the town. The rabbi gave him a special letter. What are you selling your biscuits for? Get rid of your biscuits. There was no such thing. People, you have to understand. So a lot of people are continuing that tradition of we don't rely on a sale. We do like it was always done. We get rid of all the chametz. Again, a lot of people do that. A lot of people don't. And in America, the widespread custom is to sell chametz, and we also sell our chametz in Chabad. We're not careful on it, but some Jews keep to the original custom, and they don't want to have to rely, especially if there are places will poke hole in the mechira. Okay. However, even if we follow the letter of the law and we say no, it's a kosher mechir and everything's okay, there still are certain serious worries regarding purchasing chametz after Pesach. And because of these worries, you do have Yidden who, and this is, I think, the most extreme and least amount, who don't eat any chametz till Shavuos. They continue Pesach till Shavuos.
Wow. Whoa. That's kind of cool in a way. I love Pesach, but it's nice.
They keep Pesach till Shavuos, only after Shavuos when they can assess. They have matzah all the time, yeah. Only matzah.
Pesach to Shavuos.
But they're lenient to have square matzah on Shabbos.
And shmura matzah?
Yeah, machine shmura matzah.
Kidneyot?
Yes. But chametz, actual chametz, they won't eat till Shavuos. So they go 50 days without any chametz. 51 days without any
Wow. Talk about emunah.
So if you want to know, Amshana, this is an Amshana.
Why is that the cutoff? Why is Shavuos the cutoff?
That's the assessment that they assume that all the possible chametz-owned foods have already been consumed by all the chametz-owned eaters. All of us who don't wait, we've eaten the market, so it's all new stuff. That's the assumption. But if it would come out that no, there's stuff that were owned under mechiras chametz throughout the whole year, then they'll just keep Pesach the whole year.
Wow.
In any event, but don't tell them that. Don't. Just let till Shavuos is bad enough.
Do they have those Hasidim here in Spot?
Amshanov, I just told you.
No, are they here in Spot? They have.
Yeah, sure. You have Amshanovas here. Yeah. I know Amshanov is famous that they do everything delayed. So someone thought that the reason is because they just get delayed with the end of Pesach till Shavuos. But I told them, no, that's not the reason.
Funny.
Okay. So what about us? So it's as follows. Even though we hold that the Mechiras Chametz, if done properly, is 100% valid, we have the following issues that come up. When you walk into, first, number one, the basics. When you walk into a store that's selling chametz after Pesach, how do you know that this chametz that you're about to buy and eat was not owned by a Jew over Pesach? Mm-hmm. So one simple way of verification is go to the front of the store, look at their te'udah that says the chametz was sold for Tafshin Ayin Tes, and then you know